My boyfriend's mother wanted me gone. She lost her son instead. Colin and I had been dating for 2 years when I first met his mother, Diane. We'd been taking things slow because he warned me she was difficult about girlfriends, but I figured how bad it could be. I worked as a physical therapist at the rehabilitation center downtown, had my own apartment, and my parents owned a small bakery that had been in our neighborhood for 20 years. Colin was finishing his residency at the hospital, and we were talking about moving in together. The first meeting was at a restaurant Colin picked specifically because Diane liked it. She showed up 20 minutes late, looked me up and down, and asked Colin why he didn't mention I was ethnic. I'm Italian. She spent the entire dinner asking about my real job because physical therapy wasn't a career for someone dating a future doctor. She asked if my parents were legal citizens. They were born in Philadelphia. She asked if I was dating Colin for his money. He was still in residency, making less than I. Colin kept trying to redirect the conversation, but she'd just talk over him. After that, every interaction got worse. She'd call Colin while we were together and tell him she saw a nice girl at her country club he should meet. When he'd say he was with me, she'd say that was temporary. She showed up at his apartment when I was there and acted shocked that I was still around. She told me Colin's ex, Rebecca, was getting divorced and had been asking about him. She said Rebecca's father was a judge, which would be so helpful for Colin's career. Colin told her to stop. She said she was just making conversation. For his birthday, she threw him a party and told me the wrong address. When I finally showed up 2 hours late after Colin called worried, she announced to everyone that I couldn't even bother showing up on time for important events. Colin corrected her in front of everyone. She said mistakes happen. She started calling me the wrong name, called me Bethany, Catherine, Jessica, anything but my actual name, Natalie. Colin would correct her every time. She'd say she was bad with names, even though she remembered every nurse, receptionist, and barista's name perfectly. Then came the confrontation that ended everything. Colin was on call at the hospital, and Diane showed up at my apartment. She said we needed to have a woman-to-woman talk. She told me Colin would never marry someone like me because I didn't understand their social circle. She said my parents were nice people, but they were shopkeepers, and that wasn't the kind of family connection Colin needed for his career. Then she said my parents probably pushed me to date above my station because immigrants always want their kids to marry up. My parents aren't immigrants, but whatever. She said they must be so proud I trapped a doctor, but that Colin would wise up eventually. That's when I lost it. I told her she was right. Colin deserved better than having to manage his mother's jealousy for the rest of his life. I said any woman who married him would be signing up for decades of her manipulation, and I wasn't interested in that life. I told her she won, and I was done. She actually smiled and said she knew I'd see reason eventually. Colin called me an hour later from the hospital after getting texts from his mother about how I came to her house and said horrible things before announcing I was dumping him. I told him what actually happened. He drove straight from the hospital to my apartment. He was crying and begging me not to let her win, but I was exhausted. I told him I loved him, but I couldn't spend my life fighting his mother for basic respect. We broke up that night. Diane called Colin the next day to check on him and said maybe now he could reconnect with Rebecca. That's when Colin completely shut down. He stopped answering Diane's calls. He picked up extra shifts at the hospital to avoid going home. He started sleeping in the on-call room even when he wasn't on call. His colleagues told me later he'd lost 15 pounds in the first month. His father tried to get him to come to family dinners, but Colin refused if Diane would be there. She kept insisting he was being dramatic and would get over it. 3 months after our breakup, Colin had to take medical leave because he made a mistake during a procedure from exhaustion. Nothing serious happened, but it scared him. His attending physician told his parents Colin was showing signs of severe depression. 5 months after our breakup, I met James at my cousin's wedding. He was a firefighter, coached Little League on weekends, and his mother immediately invited me to Sunday dinners. Colin somehow found out through mutual friends. His friend told me Colin hadn't been to his parents' house since we broke up. 6 months later, things got weird. Diane started showing up at my work. First, she just watched me from her car. Then she came inside and sat in the waiting room. Finally, she approached me in tears. She begged me to take Colin back. Full story on channel. Link below.